Hello and welcome to Towards a Better India. In this video, I want to talk about the latest government proposal, wherein what they are basically mooting is, trying to restrict or perhaps even, completely outright ban tourists to, say animal parks, especially tiger parks, given the focus which we've had on, Project Tiger, ensuring that tiger numbers are conserved and eventually we get to a stage where the number of tigers in our country actually increases incrementally. I mean, you would surely recall that entire campaign around the fact that there are only 14, 11 tigers left in this country. What news reports suggest at this point in time is that there are in fact many more tigers there out there. Now, I think it's a somewhat of an extreme step. I personally feel that even with tourist interaction in and around these camps, you can still ensure that tiger preservation, animal preservation can take place, because I really feel that when it comes to tourists visiting these places, there's a huge amount of revenue which comes in. That money can in turn be used to support tiger conservation, animal conservation. Unfortunately, yes, I agree that that really doesn't happen, because most the money pretty much goes to these private resort developers, the private resort owners who have of course spent a lot of money in building up these resorts. And I have been to these resorts, especially if you look at, say, a Corbett. There are beautiful resorts, around the periphery of the Jim Corbett National Park, and beautiful resorts which obviously costs at least some amount of money to stay there. I mean, I won't say that they're very expensive, but they're decent. They're kind of decent. Depends where you're staying and a lot of other factors. But how much of that money actually goes to the park, the conservation of the park, or the well-being of the park, I'm not sure. But I don't think those parks in any way come in the way of the overall well-being of the animals, the way the animals are actually conserved. I think it's an entire ecosystem which is kind of preserved, irrespective and immaterial of the tourists who come. So that being the case, I think personally, I think there is no harm per se if tourists are allowed. Like I said, it is possible, even if it's not happening right now, it is possible that you actually use those revenues which come in from tourist inflow towards preservation. Plus, I feel the very fact that these tourists visit also serves as, it's an opportunity for the tourists to actually see these animals firsthand. Otherwise, often it remains hearsay. Even if you look at, say, a park like Bandhavgarh, or there are many of these others. You might go to Ranthambore. There are chances that you might not actually spot any animal on your own. Of course, I'm not saying that it's not because they are not there, but for whatever reason, often it's just a matter of chance that you may not end up spotting any animal per se on your own. But when you go like this in a more organized fashion, you take up any of these what are called safaris, the chances are good. You look at places like Africa, I think they've done a fairly decent job, in terms of having these game parks. You have, let's say, places like South Africa, Kenya. They've really done it up nicely, to the extent that you can actually, Tanzania. Look at Tanzania. There are all of these places. What they've done is, you have these these game parks and these reserves where these animals habitat, but at the same time you have these tourists coming in. They can actually see these animals in their natural habitat, and at the same time everybody is kind of coexisting. The tourists are coming, they're visiting. The inflow of these tourists is a major source of income generation, revenue generation for these countries. So therefore I feel it is possible that a suitable ecosystem where tourists also come, and yet preservation of the natural landscape and habitat for these animals is ensured. So therefore I don't strictly and emphatically support this move. I would say I'm kind of against it. I feel that there's no real need for that. You can still have tourists, and you can still have, the animals living peacefully in their natural habitat. Please feel free to, drop your comments, and, let us all know, what you think. Do you think that, animals being there, they should be just left alone, tourists should not come there? Or do you think, the arrival of tourists does not really make a difference? I personally feel it does not make a difference. Cheers.